Hey everyone, here we are, week 7. Let's go. So, politics and geographical consideration. So you're going to primarily utilize the historical background of the period of Assyrian dominance to interpret Isaiah 36 to 39 and 2 Kings 18 to 20, and then identify and explain the genre distinctives of both prophecy and apocalyptic literature of Scripture. All right, so here's your reading. Same deal on here. The supplemental reading this week is not required, but here are some very good and helpful resources. I'd even recommend maybe you can download these resources. We've made them available for you, and that would be advantageous to do so to pad your reading library. And then let me just go ahead and describe the main assignment this week, and you also have a discussion board. So this week's assignment is the historical cultural analysis worksheet, and basically here's the assignment in the Dutcher Walls. Isn't it Wells? Dutcher Wells? Maybe it's Walls. In that reading, the author repeatedly emphasizes that, and I quote, writing about the past includes conveying a sense of the background behind the events being recorded. Okay? Historical documents such as scripture assume a reasonable amount of historical and cultural pre-understanding to be fully understood. So in essence, you can read something that makes sense because it's in English now, interpreted in English. But to fully understand the weight or the context or all the dynamics behind what was originally written to that original audience, you need to understand the background. You understand the history. You have to understand the cultural context that it was written in to fully understand what is in any given biblical text. So sometimes those who read the Bible often begin to skip over those historical and cultural details that might be too time consuming to look up and fully understand. So don't be lazy. Though this course is not intended to teach you Bible background, it is important for all students of narrative to recognize how embedded the text is in Israelite and ancient Near Eastern. That's the time period, the ancient Near East. You'll hear that a lot around scholarly documents or contexts that are referencing Bible times. It's a nice way to say it, in Bible times. History and culture. So embedded the text is in Israelite history and culture, and to understand the extent to which proper interpretation is reliant upon understanding Scripture's context. Some of the most overlooked and misunderstood contextual factors in the OT are political and geographical considerations. Most people don't understand when you're writing something, or to the Israelites in a certain political climate. So Daniel, for instance, is written in a time period where you have to understand that the Israelites are in exile in Babylon. There's a lot of political tensions that are going on there. The geographical considerations that need to be understood when you're, even just that sea and where that is and how far out it is. If you're on the Sea of Galilee, what does that look like, and how far does that mean you are from a certain people group that it talks about on the other side? This assignment, in short, is to require you to observe historical and cultural features in a text and then discuss how, specifically, the political and geographical context clarify what is happening in both. All right. So you're going to use this worksheet, and you're going to do 2 steps. First, by observation alone. That means not using any extra helps, aids, other books, other resources at all. Just off your own observation of the text. Explore the multitude of historical and cultural concepts present in Isaiah 36 to 39 and 2 Kings 18 to 20. Using the worksheet, you will note every historical and cultural feature in the text that identifies the layer of history and culture behind the narrative that is foreign to today's readers. See the document, Historical Cultural Analysis Guide, for help. The reading in Dutcher Wells will be key for this assignment. So this week's reading right here is going to be the key reading for this week's assignment. And then it is also requiring you to see the Historical and Cultural Analysis Guide. Where do we put the Historical and Cultural Analysis Guide? Let me see if I put that in the resources, or if I'm just not seeing remembering where I put it. All right. Let me go back. Please go back. All right. So use the historical and cultural analysis guide. I actually can't remember when we originally posted this. You were supposed to use this on other assignments as well, but I'll repost it so you guys can see it. But you're supposed to use this as well, the historical and cultural analysis guide. This will help you just what are the types of things you're looking for when you're looking for these things in the text. So that just gives you a whole lot of things. Here are some religious concepts, national and political entities, features of geography, social concepts. So anytime you see things like family, what are you kind of looking for? Is there a concept of inheritance, land through ancestors, clans and tribes, patriarchal headship, familial membership and loyalty? Is there a concept of the village? Social classes, you see a lot of socioeconomic divide. In different texts, borrowing and lending, oppression of the poor, things with geography, locations, descriptions of different geographic things, geopolitical boundaries. You know, the tribe of Judah had a certain area. You know, the Syrians had a certain land border. The land tied to ancestry, you see that quite a bit. So all these sort of types of things are things you want to look for in that assignment. Okay, so that's step one. Just using by observation alone, you're going to start filling out this. Why don't I just open up the historical cultural analysis worksheet, because that's what you're filling out. This is part one, what I just went over. So here's an example you'd find. Okay, in Isaiah 36, 1-2, what is a historical or cultural feature foreign to today's believers? And then short description. So Ezra introduces a foreign political entity as an enemy of Israel. Sennacherib, king of Assyria, sends a messenger to the conduit to the upper pool by the washer's field. This location appears to have some geographic significance that requires further historical study. So see what you're doing here is that you're not necessarily making any conclusions of what it means, because there's no way you know what the conduit to the upper pool or the washer's field means. But you do have the ability to start to recognize when you're reading scripture what are key elements that refer to either historical or cultural or geographic dynamics that you want to figure out. What you need to do some further study and figuring out what exactly is that, because understanding what that is going to help me actually interpret this passage much more effectively. All right, so see how the conclusion then isn't what it is. It's this location appears to have some kind of geographical significance that requires further historical or cultural study. Okay, so that's the sort of thing you're looking for. So you're essentially just going to give the chapter and verse and then give some sort of explanation of the historical or cultural feature that would be foreign to today's reader. So you read that foreign to them. So that is why we need to understand that significance better. Okay, so you have both Isaiah and 2 Kings that you're doing that out of. So you see those two different sections for that. And then part two, you would fill in there. So let me just read part two to you, step two, whatever. Then you're going to research the political and geographical background of these two same texts and write a 1 to 2 page double-spaced paper about, one, what you've discovered. So when you put all that together and all these things that you have, all these observations you've made, essentially, one, what have you discovered by doing that? And then two, how this clarifies the meaning or events of the story. So essentially, you're going to have to do some research on the political and geographic background of these. First, in this first step, you're not doing anything but observation. Then in this step, you actually are going to now go look up what you've found and research what the political and geographical background element of these two texts are. And then you're just going to, tell me what you found. This isn't super formal. It's just going to demonstrate that you went and found out what this means, or what those things, the significance of those things are. Sometimes it's just going to be, a sentence or two on what you found and the significance of it, and how this clarifies the meaning or events of the story. That's the second piece. So make it really clear we do want you to use MLA formatting throughout and cite at least 3 academic sources. So what you're doing, use the space on page 3 of the worksheet to do that. So again, what you're doing is using, not that, sorry, you're using this, page 3 here, to fill that in. So it's all one document that you would turn in for your assignment this week. And of course, there's 2 parts to that essay. The first being what have you discovered by the resources that you found, and 2, how this clarifies the meaning or the events of the story. So you do need at least 3 academic sources. You're essentially trying to use things that are sources that are going to give you the political and geographical background. So it could be just commentaries from Isaiah or 2 Kings. A Bible background commentary would be certainly a very helpful tool. And you can always use Atla. Those are going to be more journal articles. So, you know, they may or may not help, but you're free to use any of the Moody Library resources that we have for you and go from there. All right, so that's really the assignment. So it's more reflective on what you found from your sources, but you do need to use MLA formatting, meaning like you're not going to just make up what this stuff means. You're going to find it in your sources. So you only need, you know, probably about 3 academic sources in order to figure out what all your observations are talking about. And this is really just giving you an idea when you look at a couple passages, how easy it is to dig a little deeper to find some contextual significance of a passage. So when you look at a passage, there's always some features of the context that you can do a little bit of digging with just a few resources and find out, you know, a lot of information that, you know, a typical Bible reader that just has a study Bible may not have. Really good study Bibles will have some stuff. Try to stay away from the study Bibles for your resources here. Although some of them may have some good info depending on how good of a study Bible it is, but I prefer you to try to use a commentary or a Bible background commentary would be even better, sort of thing. All right, so that's the 7-1 assignment, and then the discussion board. This week's reading in Baylis. So the Baylis reading up here is what your discussion board is going to be headed on. There's only about 16 pages or so. Discussed how predictive biblical prophecies are often difficult to interpret. So those prophecies that are actually predicting something in the future that's going to happen are difficult to interpret. Why? Well, sometimes it's simply difficult to understand what kinds of events the language is describing and when they will or are supposed to happen, if they have already happened, for that matter. So people scholars argue, you know, okay, we may all agree that this is a prophecy. Some of us think it's already happened. Other of us are saying, no, it hasn't happened yet, and why, and all this. So it's popular to debate that in Bible prophecy today. Bible prophecies are always been very popular. But as the current events often appear to align with particular readings of Old and New Testament prophecies, it gets even more popular to bring those topics up and discuss them. Many Bible teachers use Old Testament verses in very different ways to talk about events that are yet to happen. As a result, scholars differ on the extent to which Christians should even speculate about the meaning of what Old Testament prophets wrote about in terms of the future. In a discussion post, explain your view on how Old Testament specifically, although you can speak broadly about the New Testament as well, predictive prophecies should be interpreted and taught within the church. Share any relevant information about your interpretive approach, views of interpretive certainty, that's self-explanatory, or experience with Bible prophecy teaching. So you can share some of your own pros and cons and positive and negative experiences with Bible prophecy teaching. Make sure to interact with this week's reading. So as you share stories or experiences, make sure that you're interacting with this week's reading, particularly on Daniel 7-12, to illustrate your points. If you're not sure where to start, check out the optional readings in Couch and Sandy for 2 different points of view on this issue. So you don't have to read Couch and Sandy, but if you're struggling, I don't even know what to talk about or where to go on this topic. It hasn't really been something that's come up for me. Some of you will have a lot of stuff that's happened that you've heard. Some of you will have nothing. So go to the Couch and Sandy reading for kind of some 2 different points of view on the topic if you're struggling with that. So it should be a fun discussion. Again, there's not necessarily right or wrong answers. So just go for it. Have fun.